Today we have with us Akash Shroff, who is a social entrepreneur, a social leader, and a development sector enthusiast. Akash has got a lot of public recognition and a lot of public awards, and recently he was also featured in the list of Forbes India Teenpreneurs. Akash founded his NGO back in 2018 when he was just 17 years old. His non-profit has raised more than 40 lakh rupees with the support of 500 volunteers, impacting 11,000 plus people across 8 districts of 3 states. His work has been recognized by many media houses like Times of India, Deccan Herald, Your Story, and many more. He has also been described as the one of the brightest young minds of India by Forbes, and Tribune describes him as a dynamic change maker and a teen role model. So in this episode, we are going to dive deep into the mind, into the thinking of Akash. We are going to see how he's running his NGO, how he's balancing it with his studies at BITS Pilani, and many more things. So let's get started with the episode. If you're new to our channel, hit the subscribe button and hit the follow button if you are listening to us on Spotify. Let's get started.
So, first of all, I would like to thank you, Akash, for giving a valuable time to us and coming to our channel. It's great having you here. So, Akash, first question that I have for you is that you mentioned perhaps in some interview or in some blog article that you were a shy teenager with severe social anxiety, right? So, I just want to know from you that how you transitioned from a shy teenager with social anxiety to a person who is leading a team of, I think, thousands of people right now in your NGO. So how did that transition took place?
Yep, that's a very interesting question, something that I get to hear quite a bit, right? So, in my high school days, I was somebody with a lot of social anxiety. In fact, I would find it difficult to just have normal conversations, like looking at people and talking to them. And of course, I had a lot of stage fright. There was this one time when I had to give a speech on stage during my high school days, and I was so nervous when I saw 1,000 people actually listening to me in school. I was so nervous that I just left the mic and walked away. I think ever since, growing from being a shy teenager in high school to actually founding a nonprofit in high school is something that's been a very interesting journey. And I think overall, I still wouldn't say I'm over my social anxiety because I still get scared of talking to people even today. A lot of times I still can't look at people in the eye. I still have stage fright when I go to talk to people. But one thing I've learned to do is I've learned to manage it. So initially throughout my high school days, one thing that I always thought was that I wasn't a good speaker, or, I just didn't have it in me to go and talk to a crowd. Later on, something that I understood was that it was only the people who scared me. It wasn't that I wasn't I wouldn't be able to speak. Like if I was practicing in front of a mirror, I would still be able to do a pretty good job. So it just took a lot of practice, and even today I'm not over it. Even today I'm scared. I think even when you asked me for this interview, it took me like 2 weeks to say yes, because I'm just still scared of interviews. But I think I've somehow learned to deal with that fear and work around it. I just didn't want to let it beat me, right? Because when I dropped that mic and I walked away, there were so many people who laughed that day, so many people who made fun of me, because that was a speech I'd been preparing to give for 2 months. And when I finally got the chance, I was just scared and I left the mic and walked away, right? So that day I made a decision. I told myself that I would never ever let that happen to me again. And I wanted to, come what may, I just wanted to get over it, and I never ever wanted to let the same thing happen to me again.
Got it. Got it. That's really very inspiring. So next, Akash, let's move on to what is basically Spark. What do you guys actually do, and what is the vision behind it? And you can also share that what are the goals that you have right now to accomplish.
Yep. So Spark is a nonprofit that I co-founded in my 12th grade in May 2018. So over the course of the last 3 years, the organization has grown to have more than 500 plus volunteers from 20 plus institutions, collectively contributing over 16,000 hours of volunteer work, impacting over 5,000 plus children at
Oh, wow.
11 different centers over the span of just 3 years. So that is the organization. The organization primarily dealt with child welfare, and now it also deals with healthcare activities. So we had our four primary programs, which were the Library Enrichment and Development Initiative. We had Project Utsaha, which was a linguistic skill development initiative. We had Project Ullasa, which was an interpersonal skill development initiative, and we had Project Vinita, which was an academic mentorship initiative. So we had all four of these programs running as weekend volunteering programs at various orphanages, schools, and after-school centers across Bangalore. And most recently, due to the pandemic, we obviously pivoted and we had to focus on pandemic relief measures as well. And we were able to raise more than 40 lakh rupees for COVID relief with the support of over 1,500 plus donors. And we were able to carry out relief work across 8 districts in 3 states, impacting another 11,000 people and making healthcare and livelihoods and education accessible to people during the pandemic.
Oh wow, that's really wonderful. Like I am to ask you this question that like you mentioned that you raised 40 lakh rupees. Is there any particular age group of students that you're targeting in the school, or is it open to all the school students?
Are you speaking about the volunteers or the
About Spark,
beneficiaries?
the beneficiaries.
Right. Spark beneficiaries. Okay. So for our education programs, we primarily focused on middle school children, that is at various government schools and orphanages. And that was primarily because we felt that would give us enough time to actually make a lasting impact and ensure that by the time these students are in high school or college, they've actually adapted to these better methods of learning.
Oh, great. So Akash, I have this question for quite a long time. When I was back in my class 11th or 12th, and even today when I am in college, I see 99.999% of students telling me that I want to create another Google, or I want to create another unicorn in India. I want to do startup, or I just want to become a billionaire by the time I'm 25. So what did actually push you to start an NGO?
I think for me, social impact is something I've been very passionate about right from the time I was very, very young. So my parents used to run their own nonprofit, and
Oh, wow.
I've accompanied them right from the time I was like 8 years old. And I've seen the kind of impact that volunteer work can have, right? Like my parents made healthcare accessible to villages where people had to otherwise walk more than 30 kilometers just to access like basic healthcare facilities. And the way in which my parents nonprofit was able to actually make an impact and help these people, that was actually my earliest introduction to social welfare and to the sector. So even years later, that was that inspiration, that motivation is what kept me going. And I was serving as the president of the social welfare committee at school when I actually founded
That's
Spark.
amazing.
So there was actually this one specific incident which led me to found the organization, right? So when I was serving as the president of the social welfare committee at school, we organized a fundraiser. And of course, it was a lot smaller than the kind of fundraisers we're able to organize now. And with the amount of money we were able to raise, we went to a government school and we went to a blind school to figure out how we can help these children. And when we went there, something that I realized, especially at the government school, was that most of these children were not grade level competent. That is, a class 5 student wouldn't be able to perform basic mathematics like basic arithmetic, addition, or multiplication for that matter. So when I realized this was something I really wanted to do something about, because I realized the government policies were mostly focusing on increasing enrollment rates, but there
Right.
was very little which was actually being done to ensure that the children were actually benefiting from this education. So
Right.
I went back to my school, when I was in class 12 as a 17-year-old, and I spoke to my classmates about this. What I heard actually surprised me. Contrary to what I thought, most people actually wanted to do something to help these children. They all understood the problem and they all wanted to do something to help these children. The only problem was most of them didn't know how they could make an impact. Like most high school students in India today still don't know. My friends as well didn't know, and they said, let's just put together, let's grow up, let's earn money, and we'll put together a lot of money and we'll donate it. So that was the kind of understanding of social impact that they had. But as somebody who has personally within the family seen a lot of impact with volunteer work, I understood the kind of power that a young person had and the kind of power a volunteer had. I To create some kind of sustainable change in society, right? And I wanted to make my own friends, my classmates, my seniors, my juniors, everybody understand this power. And which is why I founded Spark with a vision of bringing together young social leaders to create a bigger, better, and brighter future for the underserved.
So Akash, please tell that what was the process of actually growing Spark? Like, did you guys? How did you guys approach people to become volunteers, and how did you actually grow it to such a big size as it is now?
Yep, I think like most other nonprofits, we also had our challenges when it comes to volunteer recruitment, right? The first 8-9 months were very slow. We found it, I started the organization uh, in May of 2018, and even as of later that year or early 2019 as well, we had only 14 volunteers. That's it. We weren't growing at all because we had a lot of the organization had a lot of issues. Basically, the core team was not present in Bangalore, right? I was a student at BITS Pilani. My co-founder was studying. She was studying in California. My vice president was studying in Haryana. So we all were like thousands of kilometers away from where most of our volunteer work was happening, and uh, and the organization just wasn't growing. So after that, we had to regroup. When we went back home for our winter break in our freshman year, we had to regroup and look at what all strategies we can put in place, how we can delegate work, and all of that. That was a new learning experience for us. Basically, my first introduction to some kind of management. So after we put in place all of these strategies, we started using micro influencer outreach on social media to make more people aware of the kind of volunteer work we were doing and continue making people realize the kind of power they had to make and its social impact, right? So using these micro influencer outreach strategies, we were able to grow pretty quickly because as of early 2020, we had suddenly become an organization with 500 plus volunteers. In that 12-13 months phase, we grew from an organization with just 14 volunteers in one center to becoming an organization with 500 plus volunteers at 11 different centers, and we coordinated thousands of hours of social work. So I think that was the growth phase in terms of our volunteer recruitment. Now, another big challenge that I think most nonprofits actually face is fundraising.
Right.
So because as an early stage organization, especially in a country like India, it is very, very difficult to raise funds. So we faced our challenges too. So we attempted to raise funds for the first time in in January of 2020, and it was a colossal failure. We raised only 15,000 rupees with our entire team coming together to raise funds. And after that, we as students, we had to sit and analyze why we failed as an organization. We had to understand, you know we had to actually sit and look through other successful fundraisers, look at other big organizations, and understand how they were actually able to succeed. And then we learned how to build credibility for an organization, how to build impact reports, how to build annual reports, how to build project reports, and so many other documents. We learned how to build a social media profile and so many other things to actually learn how to build credibility for the organization. We learned how to do outreach and all of that. With all of that, during first wave of COVID, when we relaunched in March, we were able to raise about 20 lakh rupees, and that fundraiser took us about a year to actually raise 20 lakh rupees. And with everything we learned during the entire year, right, in terms of how to build recurring donors, how to have slotted donations, and a lot of other learnings that we had, during the second wave, when we relaunched, we were able to raise 20 lakh rupees in just 14 days, completely
Oh,
through
wow.
crowdfunding for a non-profit which does not have tax exemption. It was just amazing that we were able to raise another 20 lakh rupees in a span of just 2 weeks. And overall, being an organization run by like 13-year-olds to 21-year-olds, completely student run, we were able to raise more than 40 lakh rupees for COVID relief. And that was something which I personally still feel like is a dream. I would have never ever thought that something like this could happen even a year ago.
So I've got 2, 3 follow-up questions to you, Akash. Firstly, please explain in very brief that what are micro influencers and what niche or what kind of micro influencers did you target? Secondly, as you told that you were able to raise 15,000 rupees in your first round funding, and that was a colossal failure as according to you. So what was the target that you were aiming for? What was that minimum that you were targeting for at that time? And thirdly, which all NGOs did you look up to at that point of time and learned from their journey?
Wow, those are quite a few questions.
Yeah.
All right, so coming to your first question, so a micro influencer is anybody with followers ranging in with anywhere between as little as 100 all the way up to 10,000 people. So using a micro influencer outreach, what we basically did was we wanted to leverage the personal networks and the social standing that somebody has within their own community. Like, for example, if we wanted to onboard volunteers from a specific school, or we wanted to onboard volunteers from a specific university, we would look for people who are influential within these schools or within these universities. And then we would follow our micro influencer outreach strategy, which was basically to leverage the personal standing that they had within their own institution to actually get together more people. And that is one of the best parts about Spark, because if you look at us, we are such a diverse community. You look for law students, or commerce students, engineers. You want to look for doctors, architecture students, fashion technology students, high school students who are again doing like from a bunch of different schools. You will find all of them there in Spark, right? As an organization, that is how diverse and inclusive we are, that we have people from so many different disciplines, so many different ideologies, all of us working together. And that is something which actually contributes to our growth as well.
My next question was, how much were you targeting when you were able to crowdfund 15,000 rupees?
Well, we initially set off with a very moderate target of just 1 lakh rupees, but even that we failed, and it was a colossal failure because we raised only 15,000 rupees.
And lastly, which all NGOs did you look up to and learned from their stories?
Oh, we looked up a lot of credible NGOs. There are quite a few with Bitsian nonprofits itself. There are a lot of other good nonprofits in Bangalore which are pretty popular. We looked up a lot of these nonprofits. We analyzed their strategies, and then we were able to formulate something substantial.
Would you like to mention any one specific NGO?
Yep. So we looked up CRY, which is a pretty large nonprofit, and it has a good fundraising strategy. Within Bitsian nonprofits, we looked up HelpAge India, and Nirman, I think, is something that we're all
Right.
familiar with. We looked up Nirman. Here locally, we looked up Youth for Seva. We looked up of quite a few other organizations as well, which had run successful campaigns. And that's how we learned how to build credibility, right? And added to this, recently, at least during the second wave fundraiser, there was also the Ashoka network. So I am an Ashoka Young Changemaker as well. So among 1,800 applicants, 19 of us were chosen as Ashoka Young Changemakers. So Ashoka is a global nonprofit, right, with presence with fellows from more than 90 different countries who are advancing social impact and all of that. So with the help of that network as well, I was able to understand how to actively engage donors and a lot of different strategies like that.
So Akash, what was the biggest challenge that you faced while growing Spark? Like if you have to point out any one challenge.
Well, we face so many challenges. Pointing out one is very difficult, but I think one of the biggest challenges for me personally was managing volunteers, because I was somebody who had severe social anxiety, and suddenly I had to speak to like hundreds of people. I had to speak to other organizations. I actually was forced to hold the mic and speak on stage because, well, I was the president of an organization, the founder of an organization, and I had to do it. So I think that was one of my biggest challenges. And coming to volunteer management, right? So one of the biggest challenges we faced, like most other nonprofits, was when we recruited volunteers, they were extremely passionate. But after like 4 or 5 sessions, for most of them, their enthusiasm seemed to fizzle out. And we didn't really understand why this was happening. And this is a common problem that a lot of nonprofits face, right? So in order to address this, what we did was then we again had to regroup. We thought of various strategies to actually custom design volunteering opportunities. Right. For example, for the high school students, we designed what is known as the Impact Makers Initiative, where it works on a cohort-based model, where we provide high school students an opportunity to be associated with the organization for a span of about 2 weeks. And in these 2 weeks span, they're taught how to pitch, they're taught what an elevator pitch is, they're taught how to tap into their alumni networks, how to leverage personal contacts, how to use social media and different fundraising strategies. Apart from that, they also get to work with the organization for a couple of weeks, right? They get to teach, they get to do operations work, management work, whatever it is that they're passionate about. And based on this experience, we choose the volunteers who can continue with us. So this actually gives us an opportunity to ensure that most of the volunteers we're taking in are actually motivated. Apart from this, another thing we realized was there was a necessity to work with universities, because a lot of students had academic requirements and they were volunteering with us to meet these academic requirements. So we signed memorandums of understanding with various universities in Bangalore, various institutions in Bangalore, to actually custom design volunteering experiences for their students. So if somebody had, let's say, a semester's worth of volunteer work which was mandated by their university, we would sign a memorandums of understanding with these universities, and we custom design volunteering experiences for that duration. So what because of that, we ensured that the students would stay motivated for the span of time they are volunteering with us. Similarly, we designed internship experiences. We had our traditional volunteering model as well, and we brought in a lot of different models. Basically, from being just an organization which recruited volunteers, we started custom designing volunteering experiences. We focused more on building custom designed volunteering experiences which were conducive to the applicants, so that they would remain motivated to work for the organization for whatever duration they were associated with us.
Akash, can you point out a few factors or few reasons that why the volunteers start getting demotivated or maybe less motivated after 4 to 5 sessions? Like, what was the reason?
Yep. So there are a lot of reasons, right? First thing is, as students, we have our own academic workload. Like, for example, at the start of our own semester, we have a lot of time, and we are naturally, we want to do something, and this passion for community service is something all of us have. And we tend to take up commitments. But after, like, let's say 4 or 5 weeks, for a lot of people, passion tends to fizzle out, because you get back to your own coursework. You have your mid semesters, you have your tests, you have to worry about internships, you return to your regular life, and again, volunteering kind of takes a back seat, right? So that is what we realized, which is why we started custom designing experiences. We asked them clearly, how long do you want to be associated with us? If you just want to be a volunteer for, let's say, your summer holidays, you're more than welcome to just join us as a short-term volunteer. But if you're somebody who's actually genuinely interested, then you can join us as an actual volunteer through our regular recruitment process, right? So we started understanding the volunteers more, we started understanding their motivations more, and then we were able to actually design better experiences for them.
Okay. That's really great, because you really dive deep into the problem, understood it, and then took the required action. Yeah. So nextly, Akash, please tell us that how do you manage time between all these things, especially when all of these are kind of in very different genres. So through your LinkedIn, I got to know that you are also doing, or you were doing probably an internship in IIM Bangalore. So, and you are doing computer science at BITS Pilani. Then you are running an NGO. You are also running a startup. So how do you manage all this time? And one specific question: how do you balance this in your mind? Like, most of the times, what happens with me is that if I am doing 2 things or 3 things simultaneously, then while doing a second thing, the first thing keeps on moving in my head. So how do you keep that mind space of yours completely free from the stuff that you are not doing at that time?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and that's something which took me a lot of time to figure out, right? Because especially, at least on the academic front, during my second year, 2-1 and 2-2, they were not very good, because that was when I just founded a startup. It got seed funded. Parallelly, my NGO got recognized by the government. We were raising lakhs of rupees in funding. And like you mentioned, I had my IIM Bangalore internship, and there were a bunch of other things I was working on. And naturally, my academics took a hit. Those 2 semesters, I didn't do a very good job. But after that, it was all about finding the right balance, figuring out how to divide my time between all of these commitments. And basically, like, one of the examples was when we had our mid-semester, one of our mid-semester tests, right? That was the day I had my Forbes India Leadership Awards recording. So I had to speak at the Forbes India Leadership Awards. I had to write my mid-semester test. And that very afternoon, I had to go and meet the IT commissioner in Bangalore for my non-profit. And naturally, I also had a little bit of startup work as well that day. So that was one of the instances which I do speak about a lot, because that was the day I co-stopped my midsem. I also went and I managed to get the IT exemption, tax exemption for Spark. And I finished the recording for Forbes India Leadership Awards. And that was something all three of these are something I'd been dreaming of for at least a year. And somehow everything happened on the same day, right? And I think it was all about finding the right balance, figuring out how to split your time equally between your academics, between your personal life, because my social life also took a hit. Because at the end of my 2-2, I was just working so much, because there was a research project, there was a startup, there was an NGO, there was ACADS and all of that. I was just working so much. I was working 14-15 hours a day, and there was literally no time for myself. I would not get to talk to my friends. I hadn't spoken. There would be times where over a week I would have never called my parents, stuff like that. So after that, I had to find the right balance, basically, between my social life, my life as an entrepreneur, my life as the founder of a non-profit, and my student life, which had like internships and academics. So it was a pretty bumpy ride, and I think it took me a while, but I'm happy eventually things seem to be falling in place.
Okay. So next, just as a follow-up question, how do you actually plan your day? Like, what do you exactly do? Just go run through us.
Right. So the first thing that I do every day when I wake up is I make a to-do list. I break down each task into as many subtasks as possible, and I make a to-do list for each day. And from that to-do list, I put everything on my calendar. So initially, I just used to make a to-do list for the day, and I used to work on it. So one thing that I realized was, when you just have a list of things to do for the day, you naturally tend to start working on the things which are the easiest. And whatever the tougher things which were on your list, most of the times they tend to either get pushed to the following day, or you just keep procrastinating that, right? So in order to deal with this, another thing I did was I started actively using my calendar. So I first make a list of things to do, and after that I put those things under, I allot specific time frames for it. For example, if I have, let's say, review finances for the quarter, if let's say that is one of the tasks that I have for the day, I would also put it at a specific time slot. Like I would say between 3:30 and 4:30 today, my job is to review finances for the quarter. And between 4:30 and 5:30 today, I work on my PS2 report, or something along those lines. So for my entire day, I usually plan it out on my calendar, so that I can most optimally utilize my time. In fact, this is a tool which actually helped me understand how much time I was wasting, because when you do this and you actually micro analyze where your time is being spent every day, right, you're easily able to identify what are the time slots in which you're just wasting time on, like WhatsApp, Instagram, doing some other random things which are not important, like looking at watching too much Netflix or whatever. So you're clearly able to identify how much time you spend on each of these things, and that really helps you better balance your day.
Right. That's an amazing strategy. Like I was facing similar kind of things. Like I always used to prepare a to-do list, but I wasn't able to complete all the tasks that I have mentioned for a day. So Akash, it might have occurred for you as well that if you have set target of doing 10 tasks, then perhaps one or two just get left over in the end of the day. So how do you manage with those kind of things? For example, if you have designated 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. for a task, but it took half an hour extra. So eventually all the things that are coming after that event will get sort of disturbed. So how do you usually deal with that?
So usually when a task is, you're not really able to finish a task, right? So you reevaluate the rest of the tasks which are there for the day. You know, what are the tasks which are important but not urgent? What are the tasks which, which are urgent and important, right? So that gives you an answer. The tasks which are important and they're urgent, you obviously prioritize them for the rest of the day. And tasks which are not important, I mean not urgent and are still important, you move them to the following day. And if there are tasks which are probably just not important and not urgent, then you probably just push it to whenever you find time once again.
Got it. Got it. So finally, Akash, just tell us that how did Forbes happen, and were you expecting anything like that?
Honestly, no, because it was a rolling list. And when I saw the list of the initial Forbes teenpreneurs, so each week they were announcing a new Forbes teenpreneur, and the application process was on a rolling basis.
Okay.
So I think before me, there were at least another 5, 6 people before I applied who had already been listed. And when I looked at their profiles, they already had a lot of media coverage. They had a lot of they already had a lot of things on their profile, media coverage, magazines, newspapers, TV, etc. And I was somebody who had never done a media interview till that day, so I never thought if I did apply I would get through. And I was so very surprised when the journalist from Forbes texted me saying, hey, congratulations, this is regarding your Forbes teenpreneurs, we'd like to interview you, and we want to do a photo shoot, let me know when you're available. And that was so very surprising, because I could have never expected that something like that will happen. And obviously getting on Forbes is something I think every teen dreams of, right? Every teen wants to have an article about them on Forbes someday or the other. And I just never really thought it would come true so soon. And I was very, very happy, honestly, when that happened.
So that's wonderful, Akash, and just congratulations again for making it to Forbes. Like it's everyone's dream actually to get into Forbes or get into any such big organization or corporation's report. And you have made it so early in your life. So I'm pretty sure that there's much bigger things to come in your life ahead. Just tell the audience that what has been your biggest learning until now in your life. Anything that you consider as your biggest learning, or a thing that has completely changed, completely transformed you as a person.
I think one of the biggest things that I have learned through both my ventures and whatever other work I've done is that we just should start. We spend a lot of time thinking about what we can do. We have the next, we have whatever we think could be the next $1 billion idea, or we think we have the next idea which could transform like millions of lives, or, we have a lot of ideas, but we just do not act on it. All through, all of us every day, we keep getting these ideas which we think is world changing, but we do not
Right.
act on it a lot of times. So the only thing that I have learned is that you should not spend too much time thinking about it. If you think there is an idea, you're passionate about it, you think it could work, you have no harm trying. You should absolutely go and start something, because the best part about your student life is it's okay to fail. It's okay if your venture doesn't work out. It's okay if your nonprofit idea doesn't work out. It's okay if your research project doesn't work out. But starting is something that is very, very important. Something that I definitely don't think you should waste time thinking about an ideal time to actually start. There is no better time than now, and I think that is the best time to start.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Akash, for giving your time. Any final message you would like to give to the audience, most of which are just college students? So any final message?
Yep. So one thing that I, want to give out as a message, if there are high school students watching it, or if there are undergraduate students still in their freshman year or sophomore year or whatever. So always, right, in our society, our parents, our elders, whoever they are, they keep asking us the same one question: what do you want to be when you grow up? That is a question that all of us hear very, very regularly. My simple counter question to that, and something that motivated me right from the time I was a high school student and continues to keep me growing even today, is why is it that we have to grow up? Why do I have to wait till I grow up to be something? Why can't I be something today? If I want to be a founder, I want to be a CEO, I can be a founder when I'm 17, I can be a founder when I'm younger. Why do I have to wait to grow up? If I want to impact lives, if I want to build something, I do not have to grow up. I can be something today. And that is a message I would like to give out to everybody. You are never too young to do something. You are capable of doing whatever you want to today.
That was a wonderful, fantastic answer and quite inspiring as well. Because usually our conditioning and habits have been built like if you want to do something, wait for these many years, and while you are when you are 22, 23, then start doing things. But that's really inspiring. This answer, like this kind of perspective, is quite a new to even me, right? So just following up on these lines, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years or next 10 years?
So in the next 5 years, I want to work, I want to pursue a career in the nonprofit sector, in the development sector itself. I want to take up something along the lines of social policy, or I want to take up nonprofit leadership, something along those lines. I want to do something that can leave and lasting impact in the international development sector, something that can have a transformative impact all across Southeast Asia. So that is something that I envision myself doing in the next 3 to 5 years. As far as the exact plan ahead is concerned, I'll be very honest with you. I have no clue. I don't really know where I'll be in 5 years, but I know my vision is I want to do something that has an impact in the international development sector. How I will do it, I'm not sure. I didn't know what I would be doing a year ago, what I would be doing today, and I definitely cannot comment on what I'll be doing 5 years from now. But what I do know is I will be doing something in the development sector, and hopefully something that can leave a lasting impact across all the Southeast Asian countries.
Wow, that's amazing. Also, Akash, generally what people think and what is a general perception as well is that if someone wants to run an NGO, it should be like a part-time thing or a side thing. That should be a mainstream thing that you should be doing to just uh, run your expenses or just run your daily lifestyle. So, what are your views upon it, and how do you deal with these things?
That is one of the most common questions that I do get, right? People just cannot wrap their heads around the fact that the development sector or the non-profit sector can actually be a career option, right?
Right,
Like, for example, probably a lot of us would have seen this happening to some of our friends who took up pure science as well, right? After 11th and 12th, if they decided to, probably go to an ICER or an IISc or something like that, whenever they're asked, what do you actually, what are you actually studying? And if their answer is pure science, the common counter question that they get is, yeah, I know science is good in 11th and 12th. Do you want to be an engineer or a doctor growing up? So society doesn't really acknowledge that pure science is an actual career, right? That's
right,
something that we're all well acquainted with. On similar lines, I think people don't yet acknowledge the fact that the development sector can be a full-time career, and the nonprofit sector is something that you can pursue not just as a passion but as a career as well. There are a lot of good jobs, in the nonprofit sector as well, right from when we speak about the nonprofit sector or the development sector, jobs vary, right from something that would probably pay you 20,000 bucks to work in a rural setting with a grassroots NGO, all the way up to something like the United Nations or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or any other big organization like that, right? Organizations which pay as little as just a few thousand bucks per month, all the way up to organizations which are paying lakhs of rupees per month. So there's a huge spectrum when we speak about the nonprofit sector. It's all about where you want to place yourself and where you envision yourself working.
okay. And just a fun question, Akash. Do you also plan to join politics, maybe 10 years or 20 years down the line?
Nope. I always believe in working with the government, working on the outside to support their initiatives, advancing whatever policy decisions they make. But I really don't think I would make a good politician, because I'm somebody who is pretty straightforward, and I'm somebody who likes 100% honesty, somebody who's been a very straightforward person all my life. So I don't know how I'd actually fare in politics. So I think I'd keep away from that stream.
But like, I feel I would just really love to see a person like you in the politics. Maybe we can then change this definition of politician as well. Okay, so thanks a lot, Akash. It was amazing talking to you, and I I'm pretty sure that the audience as well must have got a lot of insights. And even I got to learn a lot from you. Your mindset, your learning, your way of approaching things is really very inspirational. And just thank you so much for being on the podcast. And thanks once again.
It was a very good experience speaking to you as well. Thank you so much for inviting me. I know you're a very popular person on campus with your YouTube channel and all of that. So I'm very happy that you actually thought of me for this interview. And all the best to you as well with your YouTube channel.
Pleasure is mine.
If you enjoyed this conversation and want to listen to more of such podcasts, then please hit the subscribe button if you are there on YouTube, and push the follow button if you are listening to us on Spotify or Google Podcast. I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, stay happy, stay focused. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.